The peak thing you can do as a brand is have someone who's your customer start a sentence with I am and put your brand name at the end. I created two things that became an identity for people. So people said, I'm a nasty gal. There were nasty gal tattoos, or they said, I'm a girl boss. And there's like girls with the word girl boss tattooed on the inside of their lips and arms. And I've seen this stuff.
I mean, that is your superpower, branding, communications, all of that. Like, you're incredibly good at it. We have made it to founder mode era. So how does Girl Boss stack up to founder mode era?
I very much built Nasty Gal in founder mode, but I don't necessarily believe in that in the same way. I think it's about getting things done. It's not about working around the clock. I bootstrapped Nasty Gal to $28 million in revenue. I didn't need investors. And I did it because like, okay, at a $350 million valuation, I raised the first money in was out of a growth fund. I owned 80% of it when it was worth $350 million. The greater public doesn't understand, but the venture community understands that you build things and sometimes it doesn't work out, right? Nasty Gal reached over $100 million in revenue. And while it didn't work out in the end, like that's really significant and I learned a lot.
Sophia, welcome to Sorcery.
Hello.
Hello from London.
Hello from London. Here we are.
Thanks for having me here. I'm so excited.
Dude, thanks for having me. I'm pretty sure that you're the host, so.
Well, yes, but I'm here in London with you.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad to see you here from across the world.
We're here today to talk about you and your tech journey. You have almost 1 million followers across all your social channels. You had a Netflix series, you had a book, you founded Nasty Gal GirlBoss, and also Business Class. So I'd love to get into that and understand, okay, going into the next chapter of your life, you've founded Trust Fund. Mm-hmm. How did your early innings of building out brands and communications and strategies lead you to this venture fund?
Yeah. I mean, the communications piece kind of came after the decision to start a fund. And, I started a fund because I'd raised venture capital. I raised $50 million back in 2012. The company was valued very highly and ended up establishing really great relationships with people who have now become my LPs. And when I, thought about branding, I don't know why I enjoy naming things. It is so fun. And I thought Trust Fund would be a very funny name. What's funny here now is that there is more of a cult, like a proper culture of kind of trust. Like people can laugh. I feel like people can laugh at it a little bit more in the States, and like kids with trust funds or whatever will wear the trust fund bucket hat because it's kind of ironic. And then people who don't have trust funds will wear a trust fund bucket hat because it's also funny. I think it's like kind of ironic for everybody.
Yeah.
And it just cuts through the noise. And so I think, with Nasty Gal, it was a provocative name. Girls would email me or DM me and be like, oh my gosh, I typed in the wrong URL. I was trying to show my grandma something. And it is not what we anticipated. So it's, even that is PR in a way. Mm-hmm. And the thing with, Nasty Gal and then Girl Boss is that I created two things that became an identity for people. Mm-hmm. So people said, I'm a nasty gal. There were nasty gal tattoos, or they said, I'm a girl boss. And there's like girls with the word girl boss tattooed on the inside of their lips, and arms, and I've seen this stuff. So I think like the peak thing you can do as a brand is have someone who's your customer or reader. Girl Boss ended up becoming a media company after it was a book and a Netflix series. Start a sentence with I am and put your brand name at the end. And it's also very powerful. It's a responsibility, but it's something that you're able to extend a brand much further than the product because people have, an affinity toward it that, they're bought into in a way that they're not in with almost any other product. So when someone shopped at Nasty Gal, it was a vote for their confidence. It was like, I'm buying a motorcycle jacket, and when I put this on, it's a vote for my future, more confident self. And it was much more emotional than a piece of clothing. And that's what it represented to people. And with Trust Fund, I think it was important for me not to have a gendered name. Third thing, and it's also, I think, really fun going to the Upfront Summit
Yeah.
and having, you know, fund managers come up to me and be like, "Oh my God, best name ever. I wish I had thought of that." Like, there's something just like really rewarding about a guy being like, "Yeah, yeah, man." I'm not sure why, because it's like I've had praise from women my whole career.
Yeah.
For some reason, maybe it's just like it's a higher bar, just period, as a woman to fucking do anything. With Trust Fund, I really wanted to make noise when I started the fund and create a sense of community and inclusion. So I raised in public, which is something called a 506c, which means that I can solicit and fundraise publicly, which you typically can't do. So I was able to, bring on LPs with checks as small as $2,500 and, people who otherwise wouldn't have been invited to invest in a venture fund. So I have over 100 LPs. I don't know if I want to do that for fun too, but honestly, there have been zero squeaky wheels.
Really?
No one. Not the bigger LPs, not the smaller LPs. I don't have institutional investors. It's like a just over $5 million fund. So the biggest checks are from people that I know, and it's like, 2 or 300K into them. That's almost like a donation. So, and I send my LP updates and, everybody seems kind of satisfied with it. And I'm about 3 years in, just over 3 years in. So that feels pretty good. And I really wanted to make noise with it. I wanted founders to know about it. I wanted potential LPs to know about it. I wanted other folks in the venture community to hear about it. I wanted to, get the best deal flow with trust funds. So, I launched with a party at, LA Tech Week, had a bunch of people at Venice.
Yeah, that was fun.
You were there. It was super fun. It was just like, hey, come have mezcal. That's what everybody wants.
Yeah.
But every other venture fund is like, let's get people on a really nice rooftop to stand up and hold drinks and stand 10 feet from one another and maybe talk to one another and probably have a name tag and not really drink. Not that I'm a huge proponent of drinking culture, but people just kind of want to have fun. And then, they'll have like 2 stools and they'll like corral everybody and have like a mini panel, which is also fine. And I've participated in those and there's a lot of value in that. But I was just like, let's have fun. And I think it was like, I think in Business Insider said it was like one of the hottest parties at LA Tech Week or something like that.
It's true. No, it was
Just
really
like,
fun. I went
it was
with
really
Kobe
fun.
Fuller at Upfront.
Yeah.
So I was at Upfront at the time and we both had a great time.
Kobe's awesome. Yeah. It was really fun and just kind of like a good way to, I guess, put a stake in the ground and be like, yeah, I'm here. I have a venture fund. It's real. Talk about it. Send me deals. And from there, just kept building and, had merch, namely the bucket hats, which were really funny and fun. The party had trust fund. I don't want to talk about napkins, but, I brand everything. I love branding everything.
Lots of details.
Yeah.
And I've looked at some of your LPs, like it's in some of your press releases. You have Marc Andreessen, you have Paris Hilton, you have Ev Williams. Could you just share more about these prominent names that you have in the mix and how you got them?
And it's like Jason Calacanis and David Sachs and
oh wow,
Chris Dixon and Andrew Chen and Rob Hayes and like, Josh Ellman and, like Anthony Noto, the CEO at SoFi. So it's like real heavy hitters. And, I met these people so long ago. I think that's it. It's just, I raised $50 million in 2012, right? Like 13 years ago. And that's when I met Marc Andreessen. I met Ev Williams. It's like been over a decade since, I was at CES playing poker with Jason Calacanis like a decade ago, Anthony Noto I met at Kara Swisher and Jason's poker game after the Code conference. And poker was has been a big part of my, I think, relationship building over the last couple years, more specifically. But yeah, I just reached out, and some of these guys I hadn't talked to in a long time, but, they've watched my story, and, I think generally the venture community, the greater public doesn't understand, but the venture community understands that, you build things and sometimes it doesn't work out, right? Nasty Gal reached over $100 million in revenue. And while it didn't work out in the end, like that's really significant. And I learned a lot. And I have built a pretty amazing Rolodex over that time. That is a huge advantage. And that was another reason why I started the fund, because I was realizing I was just kind of sitting in that and I hadn't cultivated those relationships because I was going to do something with them or ask anybody for money. But that's how relationships work. You create them over time and build trust and credibility and just like have fun with people. And, then when you're like, hey, I'm doing this thing, they often show up to support you. And that's what happened.
And you've gotten into some pretty great names because of those relationships and being a founder. I think you started doing angel investing pretty early.
Yeah, I started doing angel investing. I think the first thing I did was First Dibs in like 2013.
Really?
I became an LP in like Indexes Fund in 2013 and Iconic Capitals Fund in 2013, and those have done really well. And I invested in over 20 companies as an angel. I got into Liquid Death at 50 million post and public.com at like 100. I did Kindbody when it was like a $600 million valuation, but then, once it hit, I don't know what, it was like a year later and I was like, okay, the IPO market shrunk up. This was supposed to be a shorter term investment. It was a big check in a later stage company. So, and I have relationships with the founders at these companies. So I was able to be like, hey, is there anyone who wants to buy my, shares?
Okay, you started.
And so started selling secondary, sold some of Liquid Death. And I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but I was just like, okay, I'm just going to start divesting of some things. And that was around the time I had decided to start the fund as well. But angel investing was really fun. I was pretty sector agnostic, stage agnostic, and just really invested in things that I, thought were great. 8 Sleep was another one of them. And I think they've done really well. And then with the fund, I wanted to kind of niche down. And consumer isn't something that I really wanted to focus on, even though that's my background. I don't think that for the most part, consumer businesses are venture scalable. And
Can you share more on that?
I mean,
there's a huge bubble of consumer, and like there's still some that is drifting along. What's your perspective?
Yeah. I mean, I bootstrapped Nasty Gal to $28 million in revenue. I didn't need investors.
Yeah.
And I did it because, like, okay, I had a $350 million valuation. I raised the first money in was out of a growth fund. So I owned 80% of it when it was worth $350 million. So it was kind of like how could I possibly lose here? And, I could have kept bootstrapping Nasty Gal, right? Like I had offers to sell the company, but they were not a multiple of $350 million. So, I turned them down, and that things could have, wound up very differently for me then. And so what I found was that, with Nasty Gal, the multiples, once the company hit, 100 million in revenue were like PE multiples. And I think that happens a lot with consumer businesses, not with all of them, but I have friends right now with CPG companies and nobody will touch them. And they raised venture capital and their valuation is much higher than it, is today because that was really hot for a while. And now and their existing investors won't put money in, which also happened to me where no one wants to invest in you when your, previous investors don't even want to pony up for pro rata. And I'm hearing about a lot of that too. So I think just the way things are going is just proof of that. But also I don't really want to try to help someone do something I wasn't able to do, which was build $1 billion consumer business. But, what I do understand are the end users of the products that I'm investing in and have a lot of empathy for the people that they're marketing to. I do understand the founder's experience. I'm not an engineer, but I also have an audience that is, interested in starting businesses, because I wrote a book about entrepreneur, it's Ship. And that's what I talk about. People don't really follow me for fashion. And I do brand partnerships sometimes. And it's Salesforce, Adobe, Canva, Dell. It's it's all, software, like B2B software that's coming to me saying like, we've done the research, your audience is primed for this product. And those are the kind of products that I'm investing in too. So that's another kind of, I guess, validation point of my thesis.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way I see the, companies that I invest in are on the outside as consumer businesses, even though their end user might be a freelancer or might be an SMB or a mid-market, company or a much larger enterprise business. The way software companies need to present themselves today is as a consumer business, because they're not like, people aren't doing like outreach sales one-to-one in the same ways that they were, and there's so much more competition.
Yeah.
These aren't like legacy businesses with like, a website that doesn't matter. It's like Salesforce's website needs to be, something that's exciting, and the copywriting has to be good. And, these tools that are ultimately B2B software tools are things that, someone's going to make a decision about partially because of what they've heard about it, what their website looks like, what it says, does it look cool, are people talking about it, and, how clear the messaging is. And that's all very consumer to me. So, I've really helped my founders, who are very technical founders, solving, technical problems, to present themselves in a way that is not natural to them. Like the language they might use on their website is logistics. And if it's for like a small Shopify business, you want to say something like shipping or maybe fulfillment. But logistics is like way too sophisticated even for, for a small business owner or a Shopify owner. And so I'm kind of able to be this enzyme that helps, craft a narrative or language, presentation, or marketing for these B2B businesses that lands for someone who's trying to decide on a product similar to, between Squarespace and Wix. You're probably going to choose Squarespace because you land on their website and it's like kind of better, and that's a big decision and can make or break a business.
Sorcery is brought to you by Brex, the financial stack trusted by more than 30,000 companies, including 1 in 3 venture-backed startups in the US. Nearly 40% of startups fail because they run out of cash. Brex is literally built to help founders avoid that. Unlike traditional banks that let your money sit idle, chipping away at it with fees, Brex is designed to help you spend smarter and move faster. Their all-in-one solution combines checking, treasury, and FDIC protection into one powerful account. You can send and receive money globally at lightning speeds, get 20 times the standard FDIC coverage through their partner banks, and even high yield from day one. With same-day and even same-hour liquidity, access your funds anytime. Companies like Scale AI, DoorDash, ServiceTitan, Hims, Anthropic, Flexport, Robinhood, and Plaid trust and use Brex. Start today at brex.com/sorcery. That's BREX.com/sorcery. No, this is like a real trend, and it's something that I think few have understood or like grasped, like how sophisticated marketing has come for lots of these tech companies, because there's just so many of them. I recently had Eric Chrisman of Altimeter on, and we were talking about Anduril. Anduril is a defense tech company. Like, it is hardcore. Like, it is like a big brand. But Jen on their team has been, and their whole team has been so good at crafting them in terms of like a consumerish brand story. And that's something that Eric went further into. It's just like, it's wild. Like, there was, they like launched one of their new products, and Trump said something about it. Next thing you know, they have a billboard up about it. Like, and they don't need to have a billboard, but they do, because they're creating a vibe. And like, there's a lot of vibe building for all of these companies that's becoming like essential for customers. It's for investors, for everything. How do you think about how important that is for these companies, and where should they start?
What I found is that just getting your first customers is the most important. So that's, you don't have to have the perfect website. You just have to stand up a product and see what people think, and if they're using it and how they're using it, and talk to them. And beyond that, then it's like, okay, even if you're not putting out huge press releases, companies like Plot and Nectar in my portfolio and Agree.com, two of those companies just raised their seed rounds, are hosting events at Shop Talk where there are CMOs and CEOs who would be their customers. They're hosting dinners in New York. Agree's out there doing guerrilla marketing, like they're at, I think, SaaStr, and all of the people in the parking lots, they're like standing in the sun, directing vehicles, collecting. They just gave them all Agree.com hats, and so like anybody who enters, via the parking lot or is, getting their ticket checked is seeing something for great, it's like they're in front of the entire audience at this event, which is just really brilliant. And they're like, they're a company that's going to replace DocuSign. DocuSign would never do anything like that. And so these are super early stage companies that are doing this stuff, very early on. I actually have, this is another thing that I really love. So one of my portfolio companies, I just gave them carte blanche access to my LinkedIn DMs, and they will reach out to people that I am like tangentially connected to and say, as me, and be like, hey, I love what you're doing with such and such beauty company, such and such, whatever potential customer of theirs. This portfolio company of mine is hosting a dinner at Shop Talk. It would be awesome for you to join and love to share more about them with you. Let me know if I can make an introduction. And then the founder will ping me and be like, hey, this person responded. Can you make an email introduction? So they're just like in there kind of going wild because people respond to me.
Yeah.
And I don't have to do it. And we've agreed on what their messaging is and whatever else. But yeah, it's just, I think as a founder, having been, this is like kind of off topic, but that's, they're getting really credible people to attend these events because I'm doing outreach. Sorry for anybody who's gotten a DM, but.
Well, that's like a value add most people have not heard of. That's really
It's
unique.
kind of like rogue. Yeah, it's pretty rogue.
But it's creative.
But there's a lot of trust,
Yeah. There's trust. It's your portfolio companies, and like it's part of this. I don't know. Like there is a lot of competition for go-to-market strategies and like building these brands. And so whether it's merch, whether it's like a Twitter account and Instagram, a good website, good logo, access to your DMs, these are like really defensible and like creative ways to like move around it.
Yeah. It's like, thank you. And I think that's why I started the fund, because I was like, oh, I have this whole stack of like value add things, right?
Yeah.
The platform, the individual relationships and ability to make intros, and the credibility like in consumer, of the would-be potential customers, and then the understanding of the end user, ability to help craft like language and brand. And then
in today's high-speed business world, staying ahead means using the smartest tools possible, including the powerful capabilities of artificial intelligence. Meet Turing Intelligence. Turing builds customizable AI systems designed to solve your mission-critical challenges no matter your industry. From expert guidance to tailored projects, Turing helps top companies realize AI that's more capable, more adaptable, and more effective. With Turing, discover how AI can accelerate your business growth. To learn more, visit turing.com/sorcery, spelt SOURCERY. That's turing.com/sorcery.
Two of my companies, I did cold outreach to TechCrunch editors, and I was like, hey, on a Twitter DM, and was like, there's a company fundraising. Let me know if you want to talk to them about a fundraise announcement. They don't even do a ton of fundraise announcements. Got responses and, got like pieces in TechCrunch for these guys. I'm not a publicist. I don't even have relationships with these people, but like people respond to me. So it's also just fun, the same as it is with a founder, to be like, what can I pull off?
Right.
And really fun to see like it actually work.
Yeah, it's fun to push the boundaries and see what you can do. I mean, there were like certain instances, not to talk about myself, but like where I really loved products and I'll like tweet about it. Next thing I know, this company made it an ad and it got a 4x ROI on all of their ads, and they sold out of their inventory like 5 times. Like insane. And you could just do these things. You can just try little creative things.
Yeah, you are very credible, UGC. So.
Yeah. I don't know if many people know me, but yeah.
Yeah, I think for the right eyeballs, it's just all about the right eyeballs.
So in terms of your portfolio, what types of companies are you investing in? I know you mentioned software, you're leaning into that. You're looking at early stage. What's your target zone?
So ultimately, I'm investing in anything I wish I had when I was building my business, right? I started Nasty Gal in the end of 2006. Like, I had to have a CTO to have a, just a shopping website, right? And so there was no Gusto or JustWorks or, integrations, like project management software, creative tools. It was Photoshop, but everything kind of required you to be an expert to cobble it together. And now anybody can start a business. There's all the software that makes being a creative or collaboration or invoicing, all of these things so much easier. And I've watched very enviously as a former founder, these products emerge. And having not had them, I understand what the people, why a particular software or product might be needed. And so that's the filter I look at my investments through, because you can say that somebody needs something, but if they don't really need it, it might just sound like a good product. And I think investors who don't have operating experience or haven't been founders, I can't really imagine how they would evaluate that opportunity in the same way, because I have it just kind of like, it's like in my DNA to understand that. And it ranges from, agree.com is connecting contracts with payments. So as soon as somebody signs an agreement, they're taken through, a flow where then they connect Stripe and they just pay right away instead of having to invoice them for example, a SaaS agreement, whatever it is. The customer just pays right away. And that's like amazing. And then, there's, Nectar Social is basically creating it's far beyond this, but creating a platform where brands can market and sell and retarget through Instagram DMs the same way that, Klaviyo did for SMS. Like nobody's done that for DMs. And they just raised their, and it's not been announced. Maybe it'll be announced by the time this is live, but they've done an amazing job in a very short period of time. I'm actually a user of the product.
Oh, really?
Just for my Instagram account.
Optimizing your DMs?
Yeah. It does a lot of other kind of AI capabilities within just comments and responding to people on social. What they've done is connect Shopify accounts. Somehow the brand's Shopify account and can tie an Instagram user's account to their shopping history. So you can see someone's shopping history within their platform and, use AI to target them, retarget them, like all kinds of things. It's two sisters in Seattle who used to be Facebook engineers working on the messaging product. They know things that like nobody else knows. And then Baton Market, for example, I think there's the products I wish I had, and then there's products that allow people to become founders. And so, Baton Market is an SMB marketplace where you can basically pass the baton and buy a small business. So they've got, verified, buyers and sellers, and they're, using AI to broker these deals and due diligence and just create a new breed of entrepreneur who might want to roll up a bunch of dry cleaners, and that's a very big thing. And then Toothio, for example, is a dental labor marketplace. But I understand the power of a labor marketplace or just a marketplace to change somebody's life. So I started Nasty Gal on eBay. I wouldn't have become a founder if that framework didn't exist, where I just there were inputs and then, oh my gosh, I can work for myself. There was almost nothing else on the internet that would allow somebody to do that. But Toothio allows dental hygienists to book shifts at dentist offices and work on their own hours, like for the first time. So it's like Uber for dental hygienists, right? That's very simple, but the power that gives somebody who would typically have like a full-time job and very little flexibility is very, very I guess, special to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how much it can change somebody's life. So anything that can help somebody become a founder, operate or scale a business, market, manage their finances. So it's broad, but it's also personal, and just feels like the natural range of things that both I'm attracted to and the deal flow that I get.
How do you source all of these opportunities? I know that you might be a one-man band. Is it mostly like outreach yourself? Do you get a lot of inbounds? Do you have a secret analyst team somewhere?
Yeah, it's just me. I had an analyst for a little while, and I need to bring on another analyst. So I'm a solo GP. Get to make decisions quickly. And the deals that come to me are mostly through my relationships. Agree.com submitted a form on my website.
Really?
Yeah. And then, they ended up raising from, Hustle Fund and some other, but I was like their first yes and the first signed safe agreement through the platform. They had built that piece when I invested. So I was, I look at all of those, and they're usually like somebody starting a consumer business or something off topic, but I look at them, and that one I was like, wow. And then a lot of other really credible, investors came on board for their pre-seed. Nectar Social, trying to remember who introduced me. It's all in my LP update, but Turner Novak has been a pretty decent source of deal flow. We've also debated whether or not the investments we've made together are the best ones, just between us, not between us. Toothio I saw announced in, I think, Axios, and Kraft had led their seed round, and I reached out to Jeff Fleur, who led the deal, and was like, hey, can you make an intro? And it was like, the deal was closed 3 months prior, and I was like, hey, you want to crack this deal open for me? And they did, months after, the company had more traction, and, so I like to do things that are, I think, atypical, and see what kind of advantage I can have as an investor, and that was one of them. It was very cool. I invest in carry.com, which is, they're doing much more than this, but really providing opportunities for solopreneurs to manage, solo 401ks and, invest that money. They just launched something really interesting, but that's Ankur Nagpal, who's a pretty big audience. He built Teachable and sold it. And so that was a relationship that I had. And sometimes these founders will reach out directly. So there's no real single way. I think marketing the fund had a big impact on it, but also as an angel investor, this stuff was kind of happening. And so because it was happening naturally was another reason that I decided to start the fund.
Yeah. You've seen firsthand from your experience with Nasty Gal how pricing and valuation can really impact a business. I'm really curious how this bleeds into performance for your companies and how you think about how their valuation impacts their long-term viability.
Yeah, for the founders who have raised subsequent rounds since I invested, they're moving fast. They've been very, frenzied rounds, but, as they're making decisions about who they want to lead, my advice is just always, it's not about the valuation. The valuation can really screw you. It's not about ownership. It's, about, you can own 10% of a multi-billion-dollar company and you're in good shape, So it's about having the right investors and not putting yourself in a position where, you're going to run out of money in a year and trends have changed, investor sentiment has changed, what you're building isn't the thing, you don't have time to pivot, and you're so overvalued that nobody's going to touch the company, and you've got to do a funky acqui-hire or recap the business. So and it's my job as an investor to get the highest fastest and highest markups. But as a founder, I experienced that, right? Index preferred to hold Nasty Gal at cost than do a down round. And even though I controlled the board, I took a lot of advice and really wanted to do right by them, and obviously don't want to lose anybody's money. But that's something that, when the company was valued at like 10x revenue, it was a fashion business, it just put me in a position that was very unfun. And I don't want that for anybody else. And I would much rather a, great markup than an insane markup, because I want those companies to, be able to, especially early stage, just keep, iterating and have the time to do that. I think they should raise as much as they can. Because if things change, they could get starved out. But I think raising is not as much as you can, but, not being super conservative about how much you raise. Because when somebody wants to give you money, I am a bit of a believer of like, take the money.
Right.
Because I didn't.
Yeah. It's pretty hard to rationalize this for younger or newer founders that really want the big numbers. They want the press releases with really high valuations. It's a mark of some sort of validation and accomplishment, which it is, if you can convince someone to give you a really high price, but it does shoot you in the foot. To live up to that and then have to meet all of the metrics and expectations that come with it. Like, there are definitely strings attached. Is there any way to rationalize this for those younger founders, or do you think that it's just that's going to be a bucket that will always be around?
When you raise at the highest possible valuation, you might not be thinking about the things that are most important. And as a founder who really did go on a victory lap and do, the huge press thing, it didn't make a huge impact on the business. It ended up putting me front and center, which is an amazing asset and something that, I utilize with everything that I do, but it didn't build the business. And when you're, flaunting numbers, your customers don't care. They care about who your clients might be, because they want to know that AG1 or whatever is a customer, and that brings you credibility. But the people who would be your customers aren't looking at how much that you've fundraised and making decisions about whether they want to use your product or not. So it's really kind of like a circle jerk. It's not any indication of success, and it really is an indication of, I think, the wrong, having just maybe misaligned priorities, because fundraising is just something that you do to, further your business, be able to move faster in a category where other people are going to, move fast next to you, and you want to take up, significant market share, and you're building something that's extremely scalable, which software can be, but it's no indication of success. And if anything, to a certain extent, building under the radar, can be a good thing. The venture thing can very much be a focus of founders, and something that, makes them feel, like, wow, I've won. And it's like, no, building a real business is winning. Getting customers is winning. People loving your product is winning. Having a team that enjoys working for you is winning. It's not about how much money you've raised.
On top of Trust Fund, you are helping founders build their businesses with Business Class. Yeah. I know you have a couple of new announcements coming out with this, but could you share more about Business Class and how you started it?
Love premium merch just as much as we do? That's why Sorcery uses Fourth Wall. Everyone from creators like Marcus Brownlee to podcasts like Acquired to orgs like the Smithsonian Institute are using Fourth Wall. They let you create and sell premium products without having to stress the details. They handle everything from production, shipping, customer support, taxes, even giveaways. When it's time to level up and make gear that people are actually proud to wear, that's when it's time to use Fourth Wall. And that's why we've trusted Fourth Wall for all of our brand wear at Sorcery since day one. Use my link in the description to get free credits for your first order. And for any VCs, DM me on X, and I can get all your portfolio companies set up with a free samples credit deal.
Business Class is a digital course and community I created in 2020 during COVID after I left GirlBoss. I mean, even today, my DMs are just full of people being like, I'm starting this business, or I have a business and I want to sell it, or, where should I go next? Or I have this idea, where do I start? And I just can't answer all of those. And so while, the companies I invest in, I'm working much more closely with, there's still this whole generation of founders who are coming to me asking for advice in my inbox, and I cannot field all of those questions. And so Business Class is really an effort for me to put as much as I know into a place where potential founder can go in and really learn what I know. And so I take them from naming naming your product, branding, brand voice, positioning, making sure your internal and external culture match, intellectual property, LLCs, C corps, S corps, building your minimum viable product, testing your product, earned media, owned media, social media, working with influencers, negotiating, how to hire somebody, how to fire somebody. It's like I've done all this stuff, and it's easy for me to open my mouth and talk about it. So this is a way for me to share that with as many people as possible, and also bring together a community of people who are building businesses. It's mostly bootstrapped founders. It's not a lot of venture-backed founders. It's product-based businesses and service-based businesses. There's real estate, agents in there who are building their personal brand and also, kind of work for themselves. But then people who have, e-com businesses that are doing $20 million in revenue and are bootstrapped. So it's a pretty broad set of founders in there. And it's called Business Class, which it is very descriptive, but also I'm dressed like a Pan Am flight attendant, and each of the modules is called a flight, and the lessons are called legs, and we have a break week called a layover week, and it's just endless fun and puns. So I really try to make learning about business fun, because it can be unfun. And so we launch twice a year. So we are doing the summer enrollment now, and then we also launch in the fall. So you can join for a set period of days. This is the summer class, and then we do a kickoff call at the beginning of, June, and then each of those flights drops on a Monday each week. So they're taking the content together, even though I'm not necessarily teaching it live. And I do a live call each week, and have had Jonah Peretti from BuzzFeed and Jen Rubio from Away and Sam Parr and a lot of Damon John, just awesome people join me as guests. I guess it's my internal podcast in a way.
Yeah.
And then other, experts come on to do workshops without me, and there's co-working sessions. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
No, I'm very impressed.
It's not a super heavy lift to operate.
Okay.
I think I've kind of gotten that down. So it's, not my primary focus. The fund is the thing that I feel like I have a responsibility to stakeholders in a way that Business Class I do, but it's not, the stakes aren't as high as, raising $5 million, which I know is a micro fund, but it's still people's money, right?
I'm just curious, what module is going to be turbulence? What module is going to be a red eye?
Yeah. Red eye is good. God, I haven't. There's one called the jet fuel. There's one called the team on the ground, which is about your team. There's one called Hark. It's marketing, but Hark is angels, but whatever. The first week, they get boarding instructions. So it's just endless fun and puns.
That's so fun.
It's just the most fun for me.
Yeah, which makes it more engaging and something to look forward to for you. I mean, that is your superpower, branding, communications, all of that. You're incredibly good at it. In terms of GirlBoss, I want to get into that a little bit. Okay. We have made it to founder mode era. So how does GirlBoss stack up to founder mode era?
I don't really think that much about GirlBoss. So it was something that I wrote this book in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
It was published in 2014. It's been 11 years since I wrote a book in my 20s. I'm 41, right? Like, I was a different person. It was a different era. And so, that word persists, but it became a part of a zeitgeist and something much bigger than me that I still I still have to comment on.
Yeah, you
but
do.
I haven't really involved myself in the narrative
Mm-hmm.
that much. I think the world has changed, and, there was a big era of, people, work-life balance kind of stuff, a lot of conversations about that and burnout. And yeah, now there's founder mode, and, it's like, I think what we get into here is this double standard where if you're in founder mode as a woman, I mean, I was just talking to my friends about this last night, and they work at a crypto startup, and they do experience that. They're considered difficult, right? When they have an opinion and they're on a call and they're like, that's kind of, I don't know about that, right? It's like disappointing somebody. Guys can't necessarily take that kind of feedback from women, maybe in some circumstances. And, in general, if you're grinding as a founder, your team feels like they need to grind. And then people are like, hey, this is a bad workplace. This is toxic. I mean, I don't know. I experienced all of that when I was building Nasty Gal. I was very much not a millennial. I was a total boomer in terms of my work ethic. I was like, work. If I'm walking through the office, why am I the fastest person walking? Wait, but everyone else is getting paid. But I mean, of course you care the most. You're the founder. There was just a lot that I didn't understand.
Yeah.
I was like, I was the founder who was looking around at 6 p.m. and I was like, who's here? Who's still in the office? Which is not an indication of contribution, right? We all worked remotely during COVID. People work flexible hours. It's just about getting the work done. It's not about your butt in a seat, in a chair. So I think, I very much built Nasty Gal in founder mode. But I don't necessarily believe in that in the same way. I think it's about getting things done. It's not about working around the clock.
Reflecting back on your experience as a founder and having employees, do you think you would set a culture differently or hire differently because of that meet the same standards of pace and energy?
I would ideally not have a team.
Okay.
I think my ambition for the size of the fund, for a fund 2, for example, is capped at, the kind of LP I need, I want to manage, and the size of the team I would need to build to support that fund. Because I actually understand a lot about leadership, having done it the wrong way, having worked with incredible, and having hired incredible leaders and watched them and learned from them. But it's just, that becomes the job. And I like the kind of hand-to-hand combat of working with founders myself and spending my time doing that. I'm very much an early stage founder myself. I didn't scale super well. So I love being in the weeds with founders while they're in the early stage, because then I get to do the thing I like over and over and over again. When gets bigger, I don't inherit a big company that I don't want to run. So it's another reason why I love investing in early stage companies. But yeah, I would build a culture differently.
Well, Sophia, as we wrap up, I like to end with 2 different sections. One is your personal outlook on the rest of the year. So I would love to learn, what are you most excited about?
I'm most excited about working with the founders that I've invested in, helping them move faster and smarter and do the right things and not the wrong things. And, still see awesome deals, meet new founders, connect with other folks in the venture community, but also enjoy living on this side of the world, right? Being able to go to Greece for the weekend. My dad was in Italy for a few days and went and saw him in Rome. Had he been in Italy and I lived in LA, it would have been a family vacation to fly over there. I don't really take family, vacations, but to be able to be over here with one of my parents is amazing, or drop into Venice for a birthday weekend and not take 2 weeks off to come over here. There's just a whole world to explore. I'm also excited about riding a Lime bike. finding handbags that fit in the baskets. I'm excited about riding Lime bikes across town, finding handbags that fit in the baskets, walking through Hyde Park, doing last minute trips because I can, and there's not a lot of consequence. And I don't know, walking as much as getting in my steps. I know that's not the most ambitious answer, but
No, I think you sold me on Europe, so
what I
I
actually
might be
enjoy.
moving in. Do you have a spare
Yeah.
bedroom?
I don't. My mom's visiting and I got her an Airbnb. I have a 1-bedroom, 900 square foot apartment
Okay.
in Notting Hill. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so as we move into the final round, we're now going to go through the Kalshi prediction. So Kalshi is the first legalized prediction market in the US. I love to go through these because they're just fun and creative. And I've worked them into the theme of trust fund, which will be fun. So the first one is on Kalshi, who will the world's first trillionaire be?
You know, Sergey Brin was just on the All In podcast and talking about, he'd jump back into Google and is kind of all in on AI. And, he's like one of the smartest people I know. So my bet would be Sergey.
Sergey? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then who would the wealthiest person in the world be this year?
I hope it's not Elon Musk.
No?
But it might be Elon Musk.
Not a fan.
What a freak.
Oh.
Sorry.
Great answer. And lastly, what do you think the best AI will be this month?
The best thing for me is ChatGPT.
Okay.
It knows everything.
Yeah.
Like it's got it'll be like, well, when this happened, but it just cross-references everything. It has such a good memory, and yeah, the context that it has for anything that I ask it. I can't go train Claude to do that.
Yeah.
It's too late.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it, you know? So it's like that's the kind of debt that accumulates in software where you're like, oh shit, like I've built my LinkedIn profile. Now I have to keep it, right?
Right.
Or, it's like ChatGPT has done that for me. And so I'm just going to give you my personal answer.
Power law winner right there.
Wiener.
Well, Sophia, this was so much fun. Thank you for coming on, letting me come to London to interview you.
Oh my gosh, just for me?
Just for you.
Oh my God, thank you.
Yeah,
this was super fun.
Super fun, very fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Molly. If you enjoy our interviews, check out our newsletter, sorcery.vc, where we deliver a once-a-week top deals and tech headlines email, and also go deeper on our podcast interviews. Subscribe to Sorcery today. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen. Link in description to sign up.